online Bible study. Whether you're tuning in at Twitter or Periscope at Bible Study Cam, whether you're on Facebook.com/reflective Bible study, whether you're on YouTube at The Online Preacher, or even if you're at the onlinepreacher.com/live, wherever you happen to be tuning in, whether it's one of those places or somewhere else, whether this is on live or on replay, I want to welcome you to this morning's online Bible study. And this morning we're going to be looking at a really short passage that's found in Matthew's Gospel at the very, very end of one chapter. And we're going to be looking at what it tells us about how word had spread throughout the region regarding Jesus's miracle working ability. And it's interesting because the place that this event happens in is found, it's shared a couple of times in the Gospels, but in two specific events. And so let's uncover what we can discover in this passage. In this passage, this is found in Matthew chapter 14, starting in verse 34. This comes at the very tail end of an amazing miracle that Jesus did the night before, where Peter actually walked on water with Jesus. But immediately following this, we oftentimes jump out at the end of that, but there's a few verses left in the chapter, and that's what we're going to focus in on this morning. Matthew chapter 14, starting in verse 34, reading from the New American Standard Bible. When they had crossed over, and this is crossing over the lake, they came to land at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent word into all that surrounding district and brought to him all who were sick. And they implored him that they might just touch the fringe of his cloak, and as many as touched it were cured. Now this is an amazing set of verses. And it's amazing for two reasons in my mind. The first is that we don't see Gennesaret show up really virtually at all in the Gospels. There's only one other event that includes this place by name, and this other event is found in Luke. Found much earlier in Jesus' ministry, as Jesus is walking by the lake at Gennesaret, and he happens to be teaching the crowds, and the crowds are pushing in from all sides, and he sees a couple guys cleaning their nets. And then he asks these guys, hey, would you mind pushing your boat out from the shore for just a little ways, just so I can teach from there, and then I can teach the crowds, and then they can sit down, and we can not have to worry about pushing me into the lake? And so these two men say, okay, they push their net out, or push their boat out. Jesus preaches from the boat, and they continue cleaning their nets in the boat. And immediately following this, Jesus looks to them and he says, hey, why don't you go push your boat out? Why don't you go take your boat out now that your nets are clean? Why don't you take them out and let's go fishing? And those who are familiar with this event know this story. This is Peter and Andrew. They were cleaning their nets. This is the event and the circumstances surrounding their call to be disciples. Because while they initially push back at Jesus saying that this isn't the best time to fish, they ultimately try Jesus's fishing advice out, and they go and put down their nets, and they have an amazing catch. But that's the only other place where Gennesaret is mentioned. And so it's almost as though Peter and Andrew and James and John, who all lived around the same area, and they were all called to be disciples at around the same time. When they had crossed over, they came to the land at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, Jesus was well known in that region for simply what he had done in the earlier miracle, as well as what he had done for Peter's family shortly after inviting Peter to be a disciple. And they sent word into all that surrounding district and brought to him all who were sick. And here's the other part of the passage that jumps off the page at me. Verse 36, and they implored him that they might just touch the fringe of his cloak. Now, where would they have gotten the idea or the knowledge about just touching the edge of Jesus' garment? We don't need to take up any of your time. Just let me touch the edge of your garment just so that because I know that if I do that, I will be made well. Not long before this, and not too far away from Gennesaret, Jesus had been teaching the crowds. He had been traveling and teaching, and a synagogue leader, I believe his name was Jairus, he came to Jesus and he said, "Please come, my daughter is dying." And Jesus says, "Sure, I'll come." And as he was going to help Jairus' daughter, who was on her last breath, was on the verge of dying, and Jesus and the crowd are racing there, a woman works her way through the crowd just enough so that she can touch the edge of Jesus' garment. Because she believes that if she can just touch the edge of his garment, she will be cured of her bleeding condition that she had suffered for somewhere around 10 to 12 years. I don't remember the exact number offhand. And Jesus, as soon as that happens, he stops everything and he draws that healing out into the spotlight. Everyone else in that event wanted that healing to stay secret. They were more interested in going and seeing Jesus help this little girl who was dying. The woman who was healed feasibly could have been a little bit embarrassed by her condition, and she wanted it to stay hidden. And Jairus and the majority of the crowd, they were more focused and interested on the mission at hand and not on this potentially missed miracle. They wouldn't have known any difference had Jesus not stopped everything to bring that miracle into the spotlight. But I suspect that bringing that miracle into the spotlight spread amazing, like that story, that event spread throughout that entire region, landing us with this verse. And they implored them, those people in Gennesaret and in the region of that place, they implored him that they might just touch the fringe of his cloak. And as many as touched it were cured. That woman's amazing faith rippled out, and now we have that faith being displayed again. And that's an incredible idea that I want each of us to think about, because when we display our faith, when we display amazing, incredible faith in Jesus, don't be surprised if that faith is contagious. And not contagious in a bad way like the virus that's just kind of won't die in the world today. But that faith is contagious in a good way because it spreads faith to others. And when we live out our faith in visible ways, then we can not only help one another, not only help give God the glory, but we can also help others who might be struggling with their faith. Because while we're separated by distance and physically and all of that stuff, let's stay connected digitally and keep our faith, our hope, our trust, our belief in Jesus as we look forward towards the day when he will soon return and will take us home. And so that's what I wanted to share with us this morning. Whether you're tuning in at Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, YouTube, or at any one of the other places, and whether you're watching this on live or on replay, thank you for tuning in. And if I've shared something in these few verses that jumped off the page at you that I didn't get a chance to mention or that I didn't mention, then jump into any one of the comment boxes and let me know. I know that Periscope's comment stream will end as soon as this live stream ends, but I will see comments that are saved there. I just won't be able to respond to them. But whether you're watching this on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, if there's a comment box or a chat box or a box of some type, jump in and leave a response. Because when we show our faith in visible ways as we live out our lives, we are actually helping other people by simply being an example for them. And we are able to strengthen their faith as well. So with that said, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow.